Hello everyone, and welcome to Kevin's Seventh Heaven. Today, I want to tell you about a very special lady who would have been 100 years old today. My grandmother, Phyllis Kiser, was born on November 28, 1923, in Caldwell, Kansas. She lived until June 12, 2004, 6 months short of 81 years old. She was one of the main pillars who raised me. My cousins and siblings often say that I was the favorite of the grandchildren, but I think it was different from that. I don't think she would have thought that. I was born about a year after my grandfather, her husband David Kiser, passed away. I think it is more correct to say that I became the grief project. She was a major influence in who I am today in several ways. First, she was curious and full of wonder. She was the type of person who wanted to see what there was. I know that she looked at the world and saw its beauty, but one story that illustrates this is that she went on a cruise along Mexico with my second cousin Lori, and apparently she went up to the top of a Mayan temple just to see what was there. She had an interesting sense of humor, and to illustrate that, I would like to let you know about the time that she and I were tasked with getting my Uncle Kerry from the airport. We had pulled up into the parking lot garage of Phoenix Airport in Arizona, and we got out of the car and we started walking in, and I'm walking, and all of a sudden, my grandma's gone. She tripped over her own 2 feet and hit her head on the ground. Soon, random strangers started coming up to see how they could help. And as they were putting towels on her head to stop what was bleeding and all that, she said, "Kevin, you go and get your uncle." And you can tell that this was a pre-9/11 story, because this little, probably 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old, somewhere in there, I made it all the way to the airplane door to get my uncle. So we get out there and we pull everything together, and Uncle Kerry drives, and we go to an ER or an urgent care or something of the like, and to get Grandma treated properly. I forgot to mention that this was around Christmas time. So, as she's sitting there being treated and they're looking after her, she starts singing, "Grandma got run over by a reindeer." And then as they're washing this stuff out, they found little bits of gravel in their wounds. She goes, "Oh, I always knew I had rocks in my head." Such a wonderful, funny grandmother. She drove a Pontiac Grand Am, and she just loved that we would all call it the grandma car. Grand Am, grandma. She was on that same cruise with my cousin Lori when they were out just lounging on one of the chairs out there, reading. And all of a sudden, my cousin Lori was watching my grandmother as she watched a couple of really good-looking guys go by. And as Grandma noticed that Lori was watching, Lori went, "Aunt Phyllis." And Grandma goes, "Just because I'm old doesn't mean I can't look." Anyway, another place where I get a lot of my personality from is her eclectic taste in music. She loved classical, she loved opera, she loved new stuff, the oldies, jazz. I can remember many car trips all around town where we were listening to a radio station that featured smooth jazz versions of the popular music of the day. I didn't start singing until high school, really, for much of any people. But I started trying to mimic the three tenors because she liked listening to them so much. Also, she was everybody's grandma. I come from Prescott, Arizona, which is everybody's hometown. And then I had everybody's grandma, because she always told everyone, just call me Grandma. You don't need to call me Phyllis. Just call me Grandma. She loved being Grandma. Next, she had an immense love for reading, board games, movies, puzzles, watching TV. To start off, I want to talk about reading. She had restless leg syndrome. And instead of spending those nights when she couldn't sleep, just laying there in pain and agony, she would get up, and she would walk, and she would read. And she would build up a collection of books, and then we would take it to a local used bookstore where she would get credit. She amassed so much credit that she could tell my siblings and I that we could just show up to the bookstore, give them her name, and we could get whatever books we wanted, and it wasn't going to make much of a dip into her account at all. And she believed in me quite a bit, especially in my reading abilities. So much so that in I believe it was the third grade, she gave me these. These are unabridged, unsimplified Robert Fagel translations of the Iliad and the Odyssey. In third grade. Or I didn't even really try to read them until college. But she believed that I would be able to and would want to be able to, and she was right. Another area, I did not have any interest in the Harry Potter series at all. And then she gave me the book. She goes, "You're going to want to read this." And of course I did. She loved board games and puzzles. She had many crossword puzzle books all the time. And it is from this that I've learned to love crossword puzzles as well, and do them often and quite quickly. Her love of board games went to Go Fish, to cribbage, to Monopoly, and dominoes, Trivial Pursuit. She was very good at helping us to learn math through the use of Monopoly and dominoes. I don't know what age it was, but before that age, she would make sure you got all the points, and she would show you how you would get those points. Because in our version of dominoes, as you spread out the dominoes and you're matching side to side and all that, you didn't receive points unless you were able to make a multiple of 5 out of all the ends of the domino trains, or whatever you want to call it. And in Monopoly, she would help us to make sure we were doing the right stuff and all that. But at a certain age, she went, okay, like a mother bird pushing the baby bird out of the nest, she would say, okay, now you have to do this yourself. And if we missed out on a chance to get the rent from another player or make points, she didn't tell us. We just missed those points. And it was a very good way to show us to pay attention to what we were doing. She loved all sorts of movies. We had a huge collection of VCR recorded movies from all over the place, and all sorts of regular VHSs too. It was an immense collection. It was not very hard for me to find the movie I wanted to watch. And I would stay often with her overnight, as she lived in the same town with us. We would watch all sorts of TV together, from Star Trek to Sammo Hung's Martial Law to Walker, Texas Ranger to that show about the guy who gets the newspaper a day early and sees the future basically through that newspaper, called Early Edition. We'd watch all these together, and I would stay with her often. and I would sleep on a foam pad in her room, and she'd be up all night wandering the room reading, and it was very comforting to me that she was there. She was also very adventurous. I think she made it to 5 of the continents in the world in her travels. She loved traveling. She loved going and seeing. Finally, one of the things that I'm reminded of all the time is what this love of this particular drink, Coca-Cola, that she instilled in me. It was her favorite drink. The last year of her life, or somewhere in that amount of time, we had to put her into a nursing home, and they served only generic soda. My sister Tiffany came and visited her and drove her around and was trying to get her to tell some of her stories to a recording. And as their time was ending, she asked my grandma, "What else can we do?" And Grandma said, rather sheepishly seeming, "Can I have a real Coke?" Oh, Grandma. I was an absolute mess during her funeral, and would not have been able to speak or sing. This has more or less served as what I would have talked about her. I still think about her all the time. There are nights when I have very vivid dreams of her being alive again, and talking me through some situation in my life. It is always accompanied with that sense that this isn't right, that she is gone, and I should let her be gone. It is hard to let that happen, and I would like to end this time together with a poem by Felix Dennis. Someone is missing. Someone is missing, a crafter of quiet, a beacon of love in the midst of riot. Someone whose laughter scattered the thunder, someone who saw through eyes of wonder. Someone who reckoned hate a blindness, someone who smothered fault with kindness. Someone who wore her learning lightly, someone whose gentleness chided us slightly. Someone who fashioned her heart a palace, someone whose innocence walled out malice. Someone who harnessed hurt to healing, someone who knew just how you were feeling. Someone whose painterly eye saw through you, someone who loved you before she knew you. Someone who never called in her marker. Someone is missing, and life is darker. Thank you for learning about the beacon of light that was my grandmother. You really missed out by not meeting her. The end of this video will be a montage of photos of her. Please like, comment on, and share this video. Also, please subscribe to Kevin's Seventh Heaven on YouTube, and make sure that notification bell is set to all. I would really appreciate all the help you can give. Anyway, ta-ta for now. Love and miss you, Grandma. Love you all.